The star of the show today is going to be my friend and colleague, Senator Dean Florez. But I wanted to kick off this press conference because this is a very, very important announcement. When I was sworn in as leader of the state Senate in December, I told my colleagues that it was time to shake it up. I want to commend Senator Florez today for taking the Senate Agriculture Committee and, in fact, shaking it up. The new committee, which we will now call the Senate Food and Agriculture Committee, is an acknowledgement of the central role that food plays in our lives, while also being mindful of how important agriculture is to California's economy. No one in the legislature understands these issues better than the majority leader, Senator Dean Florez. He is a longtime leader in California on agricultural issues, from food safety to worker safety, from pesticides to air quality in the Central Valley. In expanding the scope of the Ag Committee, Senator Florez will add a unique and needed consumer perspective to the legislature's oversight of how California's food goes from our farms to our tables. I am thrilled that Senator Florez is willing to take on this assignment and that he's taking this committee in a whole new direction. Please welcome the new chair of the committee and the majority leader, Senator Dean Florez.
Thank you, Darrell.
And I've got to get back downstairs. Yeah. We have a little budget crisis. I don't know if anybody knew. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. I do want to say thank you to Senator Steinberg. I know that he's got very important business, obviously, with the budget. But I think, as the Pro Tem mentioned, we are trying to change the paradigm of food and food policy in the state of California. And I obviously, as you probably know, most consumers are worried not just about price, but lately, over the last few years, about safety. And there's no doubt that food safety is very important to the public. I can tell you that there's a growing sense of urgency in terms of how safe our food is. Ultimately, what kind of oversight we have here in the legislature over the various commissions in the state of California. We've read many articles about tomato commissions, avocado commissions, a few others that we really would like to begin to ask some very important questions. No doubt that alternative types of foods are very important. Organics, people care about organic, local, pasture-based, and humane types of food production. And I can tell you that what we're trying to do is trying to, of course, remain competitive in agriculture, but at the same time recognize that agriculture is very much moving into a changing market. Not only is the political constituency changing when it comes to agriculture and food, but I can tell you that I think the Pro Tem has seen that we need a committee in the California Senate that deals with food and agriculture. And if at least you think this is some monumental change in the environment, recognize that we do have a department in California called the Department of Food and Ag. So wouldn't necessarily say this is very much different in terms of trying to match up what we should be doing here in the legislature. I can tell you that the reason I think this is a big paradigm shift for the legislature is that for the first time this committee is not just going to look at the production of food. We're going to look at the distribution of food, and we're also going to be talking about the consumption of food, how food is consumed, why it's consumed, nutrients, the whole issue of trying to get much more further into the discussion of food. And you've all seen this come up time and time again in the legislature, things like trans fats, things in many cases that might end up in a health committee will probably end up, if you will, in the Senate Ag Committee. And, of course, safety is one of our biggest concerns. There's no doubt that we've had, as you know, we've lived through a beef recall here most recently, where the USDA has said we promise it's safe, and yet we've had one of the more massive recalls. And as you remember just last year with our schools and reimbursement and all of those issues were very important. Leafy greens and the spinach industry, of course, has been something we've been very interested in terms of foodborne illness. We're very much interested in picking up that discussion. And I can tell you that the committees are going to have our first hearing on February the 3rd, a couple Tuesdays from now, on the whole issue of organics and why CDFA allowed for, if you will, some non-organic material to be placed in our food supply, and why aren't we doing more oversight over that, and how are we going to correct that. In fact, farm-to-fork types of hearings you can expect from this committee. We're very interested in making sure that consumers believe that the food that they eat is safe. And of course, as the Pro Tem mentioned, sustainable agriculture as a movement is something that we're very interested in from this committee's perspective. It isn't just how we grow and process and eat food, but also the issues that come about because of food, whether it be healthcare, energy independence, or even climate change. And I don't have to mention to you the carbon footprint that agriculture leaves. Trying to figure out how to sustainably grow agriculture is something that we're very much interested in. And animal welfare, I should say, is part of this commission, part of our issue here. I can tell you that animal welfare issues is going to be very much at the forefront of this committee. There's no doubt Prop 2 was a wake-up call for most Californians. And hopefully people will see that we need to recognize that there has to be some accommodation for animal welfare issues in the state legislature, and particularly here in the state Senate. I'd like you to hear from a few folks that we've invited to this press conference today, but more importantly, I'd like to hear from one of my colleagues, Lonnie Hancock, who will be a new member of the Senate Ag Committee. Senator Pavley will also be a member of the committee. But I am very thankful that we have Lonnie here, and maybe Lonnie can say a few words, and then I'd like to have Wayne Pacell, Luke Cole, and a few others make a few statements, and then we'll take any questions. So come on up, Lonnie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dean. I am delighted to be appointed to this very important committee. I've carried legislation on this issue. I represent an urban constituency that cares passionately about its food safety, its food security, and both the human and environmental way that we feed ourselves. And particularly, we've done some groundbreaking work on the school-to-farm connection and how we really get our institutional buyers, like our schools, connected to the local farms that could serve them. As a person who chaired the Natural Resources Committee in the Assembly before coming over to the Senate for 4 years, I know, as Senator Florez said, the environmental impacts of agriculture. The fact that in 1940 we produced almost 2.5 calories of food for each calorie of fossil fuel energy that we used. Now, it takes 10 calories of fossil fuel energy to produce 1 calorie of food, our highly processed food, our food that's transported all over the place. I have watched California lead the way in taking action on global warming and greenhouse gas emissions. I believe that in looking at this issue in this holistic way, we're going to break new ground, not only for California, but for the country.
Thank you, Lonnie. Appreciate that. Okay, Wayne, you want to come up, and then we'll have Luke after that and Mark.
Yeah, I'm Wayne Pacell, President and CEO of the Humane Society of the United States, and I want to thank the Majority Leader for his leadership broadly, and then specifically with this committee. I will restrict my comments just briefly to the issue of animal welfare. The Humane Society was involved with 2 big issues on animal welfare in 2008. One was the issue of an undercover investigation we did at the Hallmark Westland slaughter plant that was specializing in spent dairy cows in Chino, California. That investigation led to the largest meat recall in American history. It led to 8 congressional hearings, largely about the safety of the food supply and the mistreatment of animals too sick or injured to walk. And if we had had proper oversight on this issue in California, perhaps that undercover investigation would not have been necessary. And it was $1 billion cost to the industry because of the findings of this investigation. We hope we can avoid that and work together with industry. And I hope that this committee pulls all of us together to reach for solutions. The second issue is Proposition 2, the measure to ban the inhumane confinement of veal calves, breeding pigs, and laying hens. This measure, despite a very vigorous opposition campaign, got 63.5% of the vote. It won in 47 of 58 counties. It got more votes than any citizen initiative in California history. And I think that speaks to the issue that the public does care about production agriculture, it does care about the cost of food, but it also cares about animal welfare. It cares about the environment, about food security. We need a committee to balance all these interests, and I think under Senator Florez's leadership we'll have that balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Perfect. Luke?
Thank you. Luke Cole, I'm the Executive Director of the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment. We have offices in Delano, in Senator Florez's district, and also in San Francisco. I think today marks a real change in consciousness in the legislature. And the idea that food safety and food security for the consumer is integrally and intricately tied to food safety and production safety for farm workers and for rural communities where all of our food comes from is a critical link. And I'd like to applaud the majority leader. He's been a leader on clean air for all Californians, specifically Central Valley residents. And I think this new kind of consciousness in charge of the Agriculture Committee will ensure not only do we have a robust agricultural economy, but that we have a robust set of public health policies, not just for the consumers, but also for the rural communities where agriculture is produced. I think it's a great day for environmental justice in California, and I applaud the leadership here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Here.
Sorry.
My name is George Davis. I'm the owner of Porter Creek Vineyards, a small winery in Sonoma County. I'm also Vice President of Community Alliance with Family Farmers. I want to thank you, Senator Florez, for your opening remarks. They go to the heart of what our organization has been about for the last 25 years, sustainable agriculture and local food systems. CAF is a statewide organization of both farmers and non-farm Californians who support the long-term sustainability of our agriculture in California. We work with farmers throughout the state to help them do everything from reducing pesticide use to protecting farmland and waterways to developing local markets for their crops so they can keep more of their food dollar in their local communities. We also work in the capital as California's voice for family farms and sustainable agriculture. We have worked with you, Senator Florez, and I might add, not always on the same side of every issue, but we are happy to be here today to express our support for you as the next chair of the Senate Food and Agriculture Committee. We are excited about your new vision for this committee and for California agriculture. Senator, you are a hard worker, that's evident. And from all the evidence, you're an independent thinker. And if there's anything California can use at this time, it's fresh and independent approaches to our challenges and problems. Opportunities which need to be recognized and supported, even in these times of tight and vanishing budgets, as well as dealing with our manifest problems. We look forward to working with you, for example, on one of our prime areas of interest in the last couple of years, food safety. Our state needs food safety programs that target the most likely sources of food contamination without institutionalizing a program of scorched earth on the family farm. We don't need to make a choice between food safety and the environment. These things can work together to the benefit of both. We hope to work with you to protect farmland and encourage new local markets for clean, healthy California farm products. We think that that's what Californians want. At least that's what we want. And we're excited to work with you in a new Food and Agricultural Committee, a committee that will work on behalf of all Californians for a sustainable food system.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. Thank you very much. Okay, Mark, come on up.
Hello, I'm Mark Schlossberg, California Director for Food and Water Watch. We'd like to thank Majority Leader Florez for the direction that this committee is going to be taking. The renaming and reconstituting of this committee to focus on food as well as agriculture is an important step in a direction towards a more sustainable, environmentally friendly, and consumer-conscious food system in California. From issues of food safety to sustainable agriculture. These are issues that we've been focusing on and issues that we are looking forward to addressing with this committee. Because of our focus on food and water issues, we're particularly interested in working with this committee on issues of how food production affects water and how we can build a more sustainable system with regard to safeguarding our important water resources in addition to food production and safety. I'd like to once again thank Senator Florez and Senate Pro Tem Steinberg for the direction on this, and we look forward to working with this committee as it progresses. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren Ornelas, and I'm the Executive Director of the Food Empowerment Project based in San Jose, California. And I want to thank the Senator as well for the creation of this committee, for actually taking a critical look and having as part of its goal looking at the treatment of animals as well as the treatment of farm workers. But even more important is looking at the accessibility of healthy foods in low-income areas so that all of Californians have access to healthy food, fresh vegetables, and fresh fruit that everyone deserves and should be considered a right and not a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Rebecca?
Rebecca Spector, West Coast Director of the Center for Food Safety based in San Francisco. And we think that the committee's restructuring is really forward-looking and unprecedented. We're very encouraged that the committee's mandate is to address food safety, animal welfare, as well as agricultural practices, and also to conduct oversight. When hearings like the ones that Senator Florez was talking about involve a wide range of stakeholders, the results are broadly beneficial to the public and to consumers. We hope that this restructuring of the committee will restore a measure of security and safety in the food supply that is now a little bit missing, and aim to establish the right of the consumer to know how their food is produced. So thank you, Senator Florez, for your leadership.
Hi, I'm Amanda Loudon with the National Association of Nutrition Professionals. And what we're really excited about is, in addition to sustainable agriculture and farming, is the way this affects the nutrients that are grown into that occur in our foods. This is really exciting time to be here at a time when we're in a national health crisis with obesity at epic proportions. Food quality is at most important. Great. So thank you. We're really excited about that.
Dan?
Thank you, Senator. My name is Dan Kolb, representing the Union of Concerned Scientists, and we too want to lend our thanks to Senator Florez for his foresight to create this somewhat revised emphasis of this committee, or expanded emphasis of this committee. I won't repeat all the important things that were just said. I will say that we're looking forward to what comes out of this committee to be a model for other states and for the federal government, and we're hoping that we can continue and improve our efforts to base our reforms on dealing with food safety on the best science available, and we look forward to working with the Senator on many issues, including the overuse of antibiotics in the animal husbandry industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, did I miss anyone? Okay, any questions? Anybody got any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, kind of overall then, this is, it sounds more like a series of policy changes along with the name change. You're broadening the scope of what the committee will be doing.
Well, I actually think what we're trying to do is open the doors. Let's just face it. I mean, there have been, in both ag committees, both in the Assembly and in the Senate, opportunities for us to solve problems for Californians. And because we don't solve them, or we don't hold a hearing, or somehow, in many cases, things are stopped before they're even begun in terms of discussion, we end up on the ballot. Prop 2 is a very good example of that. And I think there are many other issues that we are very interested in terms of opening the discussion on. I can say I think what doesn't occur here very often is a lot of oversight in terms of CDFA. And obviously, this is our role, I mean, to make sure that CDFA is doing what it needs to do. And we do want to add a sustainable agricultural component to this. I mean, I see people in the audience that talk about ag, but I also see people in the audience that talk about water runoff, soil, pesticides, a whole host of other issues that we have, in many cases, dealt with on a bill-by-bill basis. And I think this is really a committee to explore the broad policy arena in terms of where we might go. And I think it's a good balance in the Senate. I think Senator Steinberg recognized that this is an extension of his sustainability efforts in communities. And I think that this is something that we're going to be way ahead of again in California. And quite frankly, it's no different than every single writer has asked the president, our new president, Barack Obama, to be looking at a food policy for this nation that is actually progressive. And I think what we're going to try to do here in this committee is try to take that agenda and try to further that. And of course, California hopefully will be the leader. and the federal government will follow. So we're very excited to push the committee's agenda forward, and it's going to be proactive. We're not, I guarantee you, we'll probably have 3 oversight hearings before we hear a bill. And so I think you're going to find that we're going to go out there and talk a lot about what we should be doing, what people should have done in many cases, and how we can correct some, in many cases, some problems in the system that need some correction.
There's been a lot of references here to Proposition 2 and animal welfare. During that campaign, there was agreement on both sides. Egg prices would rise as a result of Proposition 2. Commercial egg growers says it's going to drive their industry out of state. Is that the sort of legacy we should look forward to from your committee? Higher food prices and agribusiness leaving the state?
Yeah, well, I think the legacy will be one of how do we implement Prop 2 in a way that allows us to further the agenda for safe food. And I think obviously there were many nodes for the industry to engage in a discussion, for example, with Humane Society and others, but yet because of both committees, the Senate and the Assembly, not paying enough attention to these issues, it resonated to the ballot. And I think that's unfortunate. I think what the voters want is for us to take on these issues head on in the policy committees and have some real results or some losses. But when you don't hear it at all, I think you find that these things head to the ballot. And we're very interested in seeing, from a committee perspective, how Prop 2 is going to be implemented, and we want to see it implemented. The people of California want to see it implemented. And I think how we do that is going to be really the proof in the pudding. And Wayne, do you want to add something to that? Because I know that you're very involved in that.
Well, I think, you know, obviously the proponents of Prop 2 said the price increase was going to be de minimis, a penny an egg on the production side. And people heard the arguments, and I think that this is it, that this committee in the past and the Assembly Committee have looked at a very narrow range of issues. They said, okay, let's look at price, let's look at how it affects the agricultural producers, but what about animal welfare? What about the effect on the environment? And I think that we have to balance these issues. The public heard the arguments on all sides. It was a very robust campaign on the no side, yet 2/3 of voters favored it. So I think we've got to listen to what the people of California are saying, and that's what this committee's about, I think.
And on that very note, you've articulated your vision for a committee that would have greater oversight over multi-platforms and perhaps greater regulation. What impact do you see that having on food price, since that's such a core issue we are in recessionary times?
Well, I think first and foremost, if we can try to move some of the cost away from some items that might not cost a few things. Let me turn the world upside down for a moment and talk about the things that we're going to be looking at. The milk pool is one of those items. You know, the usefulness of the milk pool, the amount of folks that dairy industry is about to go under. Some of them pay into it, some don't. Whether or not that actually makes prices higher for consumers, these are some of the issues that we're going to be looking at. Let's really examine that. Let's really examine the milk pool and see what the benefit is for consumers in terms of lower cost. I can tell you, I mentioned right at the beginning, things like the Avocado Commission, where you've had $2-3 million running through an industry that probably could have been kept in the industry to keep our prices lower. Tomato commissions, you have a whole host of issues there where there's a lot of, in many cases, sometimes mismanagement by consumer-driven or commission-driven agriculture in the sense of watching itself. I think there's lots of cost savings to be looked at. I'm not sure that the regulations that have been moving through the process are in many cases driving cost up. I think the real issue is, quite frankly, whether or not we're being efficient enough with the money that we do have in the industry. Milk pool, avocado commission, tomato commission, leafy greens, as you know, with the E. coli issue. I'm not sure if consumers aren't willing to look at real safety measures for their food versus, and in many cases, some of the things that have occurred during those types of outbreaks. We have a salmonella outbreak right now in peanut butter. I mean, I think consumers are asking, how safe is my food? What is my government doing to protect that? And at the minimum, they expect government to protect their food supply. I think that's the one thing that I think most Californians would agree on. I'm not sure we have a committee in the legislature that is focused on that every single opportunity we have. We're very much interested in production. We're not so much interested in many cases in distribution and consumption. And if we focus in on distribution and consumption along with production, I think we're going to be a much more balanced committee, and hopefully that's what we're going to be working on.
So the state legislature, which can't balance its own budget, is going to tell agribusiness how to improve its act.
No, I think number one, we are going to have a budget very soon. But I think what we're going to try to do is to make sure that agriculture knows, particularly production agriculture, that, and working with them, I can tell you that many people in the industry I've worked with, we all want to see a safer product. The question is whether we're structured in a way to deal with that. And I'm hopefully we will be able to do that. And I think we're going to do that here in the new Senate Food and Ag Committee. I'm very, very hopeful about that.
This leadership has normally been reserved for a Republican.
Yes.
Does this mean there will not be a Republican chairman in this Senate? And what does that suggest for any kind of bipartisanship?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good question. I had an opportunity to see Senator Maldonado's press release prior to walking in the room. First and foremost, Senator Maldonado has been a wonderful chair of the Ag Committee, and I've served with Senator Maldonado on the committee. I think he'll be a very capable chairman of a committee in the Senate, maybe not the Ag Committee. The reason for that is I think that we want to change some direction. As I mentioned, we want to focus on not just production, but consumption and also distribution. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this is some sort of slight to our Republican colleagues. What we want to do with the new Food and Agriculture Committee in the Senate is simply talk about sustainable agriculture, animal welfare issues, and in many cases are probably better left in the hands of our pro tem in terms of the direction he'd like to take the Senate. I mean, this is part of Darrell's larger vision of sustainability, and I think it matches perfectly in terms of what he's worked on and, quite frankly, what the governor signed in terms of his sustainable community legislation earlier in the year. So I think it actually is a match of both Republican and Democrats in trying to move forward on it. So I don't know how our Republican colleagues will feel about the committee, but I can tell you I've served with Senator Denham and Senator Maldonado our entire career here, and I think it's going to work out fine. It's just going to be a change of perspective a bit, and hopefully they'll adapt with us. Any other questions on? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. Okay.